Suddenly, a loud gunshot rang out, and people crouched down, covering their heads with their hands. Panic began to set in. The crowd scattered in all directions in alarm, some looking around for the source of the noise, while others froze without moving. On August 28, 1914, Archduke Franz Ferdinand and his wife Sophia von Chotek died tragically. Serbian Gavrilo Princip had aptly shot the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The situation on the streets of Sarajevo led to the outbreak of World War I. Gavrilo was basically a misfit who grew up in abject poverty, the son of a simple Bosnian peasant. The meager nutrition he received as a child caused him to grow up to be a frail, short young man whom even the Serbian army did not want in its ranks, and girls rejected his advances with disgust. They called him the dregs of society. Gavrilo hated Austria-Hungary, which annexed Bosnia and Herzegovina in 1908. He met like-minded people in the youth organization Young Bosnia, whose members dreamed of wresting the Yugoslav lands from the Habsburgs. The form of the new state was a secondary issue for him. The main thing was to free himself from the power of the hated Austria-Hungary. They were fanatics who believed that they could eventually become martyrs. For this reason, Gavrilo willingly agreed to eliminate the cause of his problem. In his opinion, Archduke Franz Ferdinand, who was considered the enemy of all South Slavs in the Balkans. Soon after this event, war swept across Europe, changing the map of the old continent and overthrowing great monarchies. But the young Serb not only indirectly ignited one of the bloodiest conflicts in world history, but also brutally cut short one of Europe's most beautiful love stories of the 20th century. Archduke Franz Ferdinand and Sophia von Chotek had to go through severe trials before they could marry, and their wedding can safely be called the mesalliance of the century. But it was true love that overcame all obstacles, albeit with a sad ending. Archduke Franz Ferdinand was not born heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne. The heir was originally Archduke Rudolf, son of Emperor Franz Joseph and Elizabeth of Bavaria. However, due to a mental breakdown, Rudolf committed suicide. After Rudolf's death, the emperor's younger brother Karl Ludwig automatically became heir to the throne. However, Karl Ludwig died of typhus, which he contracted after drinking contaminated water from the Jordan during a pilgrimage. His eldest son, Franz Ferdinand, became the main contender for the throne. Franz Ferdinand was born on December 18, 1863, in the city of Graz. His mother, Maria Annunziata, died in 1871 at the age of 28, leaving her 4 children in the care of their father. Fortunately for the orphans, their father, Karl Ludwig, remarried to the Portuguese Infanta Maria Teresa. She was 22 years younger than Karl Ludwig. Despite the huge age difference and having children of her own with the Archduke, Maria Teresa was able to be a good stepmother to Karl Ludwig's 4 children. She gave the children the warmth, love, and care they lacked. Franz Ferdinand especially needed his mother's affection and support. From childhood, he was shy and often ill. Many favored his younger brother Otto, but despite the initially good impression, he was a sadist. It has been reported to this day that Otto loved to watch the skin of soldiers tied to a slab on his orders get covered in blisters. He was also cruel to animals and is said to have caused the death of an officer from alcohol intoxication who was forcibly injected with brandy. Franz Ferdinand received a conservative education. In public, he was often sullen, not cheerful and severe. He did not care about his public image. His disposition repelled the fairer sex rather than attracted them. But once he became heir to the throne, he became a more desirable groom for European princesses. Franz Ferdinand wanted to marry for love. He was probably looking for a woman like his stepmother, calm, kind, and gentle. But his uncle, Emperor Franz Joseph, insisted that Franz Ferdinand choose a woman from the ruling circles as his wife, adhering to the family statutes of 1839. He was therefore to take a Catholic woman of equal descent as his wife. At first, the Archduke tried to find a worthy bride, but none of the ladies presented were to his liking. Franz Ferdinand said that all the princesses were still children of 17 old, in addition, not beautiful. He considered himself too old to spend time raising his own wife. He was looking for a woman with a serious view of the world. Meanwhile, European courts and the most noble aristocratic houses continued to find him candidates. Arriving in London in 1894, he was literally surrounded by brides. I felt uneasy as these chosen brides moved about like a large herd, displaying an alarming persistence. I sat next to one such victim looking for a man, and her parents, with glued-on smiles, watched me intently, said Franz Ferdinand. The ideal that Franz Ferdinand sought in vain at European courts was right under his nose, namely at the court of his cousin, Archduke Ferdinand, among the court ladies of his wife, Isabella de Croix. That lady was Sophia von Chotek. Sophia was born in 1868. She was no longer a minor at the time she met the Archduke, and her character and attitudes had already fully matured for Franz Ferdinand. She was not a beauty, but she was a pretty, charming, and graceful girl. Sophia was a tall, slender person with gorgeous dark hair and brown eyes. She was an excellent pianist and was fluent in German, English, and French, had artistic talent, and was an excellent horsewoman and tennis player. Her kindness and sense of humor were noted by her interlocutors. Although she was an aristocrat, descended from the Bohemian noble family of Chotek, she did not grow up in luxury. Her father, Count Bohuslav Chotek, worked as an Austrian diplomat, including representing Austrian interests in St. Petersburg. The Chotek family became very impoverished, and Bohuslav's earnings from his diplomatic service were the family's only source of income. Bohuslav had to work hard to feed and raise his 7 children. When the Chotek family lived in Vienna, Sophia and her sisters went to a ball, where they became the subject of gossip and ridicule. The fact is that impoverished aristocrats were born without servants and with repaired shoes on their feet. Sophia soon entered the service as maid of honor to the ambitious Archduchess Isabella von Croix. Isabella was an overbearing, harsh, and demanding woman who made life miserable for her household. Isabella treated her maids of honor as if they were servants, as in reality she was economizing on her servants. She disliked Sophia most of all, but she obediently bore all the claims of her nurse. Of course, the aristocrats did not want to spend their lives engaged only to empty the Duchess's bordaloo, especially officially it was not part of their duties. But it was probably thanks to Isabella that Sophia and Franz Ferdinand met. Isabella expected to marry her eldest daughter to Franz Ferdinand and often invited the Archduke to visit, but he liked a more modest and charming maid of honor. Sophia immediately won his heart. As it turned out, the Archduke was one of those rare men who fall in love only once, able to remain faithful to one single woman. However, Emperor Franz Joseph did not suspect that his nephew had fallen in love with an ordinary maid of honor. The doctor who took care of the Archduke, suffering from tuberculosis, noticed that his patient every morning eagerly awaits the mail and that even the slightest delay in the delivery of letters makes him nervous. The physician did not know that Franz Ferdinand was eagerly awaiting news from Sophia. Meanwhile, Sophia von Chotek's financial situation was worsening by the day. In 1896, her father died. Her younger sisters were left destitute, and Sophia tried to help them as much as possible, although the responsibility of supporting them automatically passed to their older brother Wolfgang. Franz Ferdinand did not know how to tell his uncle that he intended to marry Sophia. This marriage would be considered a mesalliance. Isabella was beginning to speculate about the relationship between Sophia and Archduke Franz Ferdinand. Isabella still cynically hoped that the Archduke would marry her eldest daughter and simply make Sophia his favorite. But in 1898, Sophia received a postcard with a picture of the Archduke's Viennese residence and the caption "A picture of our house in Vienna." Isabella flew into a real rage. She unceremoniously kicked Sophia out without letting her pack her things. It's not known where Sophia went. She probably took temporary refuge in one of the convents. Isabella went to an audience with Emperor Franz Joseph to complain about the behavior of the heir to the throne, who, in her opinion, made her daughter hope for marriage and then had an affair with one of her ladies-in-waiting. Franz Joseph listened calmly to the tirade and claims of his hysterical relative and promised to speak to his nephew soon. The emperor thought it was really a passing affair of his nephew's, and at first was not too worried. However, Franz Joseph's meeting with Franz Ferdinand shattered this calm. Franz Ferdinand told his uncle his version of events, He had never been attracted to Isabella's daughter and gave no hope of marriage, and his affair with Sophia was not a passing affair. He chose his wife. Emperor Franz Joseph clutched at his heart. The emperor did not understand why his nephew would marry Sophia if he could make her his favorite. A week later, the emperor's nephew arrived again and again declared that he would marry only Sophia von Chotek. The emperor was outraged. He explained to his nephew that the marriage was impossible because it threatened the dynasty and contradicted centuries of Habsburg tradition. The emperor told his nephew that even if he married Sophia, it would only be by morganatic marriage. Their children would have no rights to the throne, and Sophia would always be behind her husband and unable to perform all official functions at court because of her low social status, even if she became the wife of the heir to the throne. I cannot marry anyone else and will never do so, because it disgusts me, and I cannot connect with anyone without love, making unhappy myself and this woman, while my heart belongs and will always belong to the Countess, wrote in a letter Franz Ferdinand to his uncle. The emperor's cronies asked Sophia to renounce her love for the heir to the throne, trying to use Sophia's deep religiosity for their own purposes. But after affectionate pleas, the Countess was tried to be slandered. It was said that she is a treacherous schemer and adventurer, greedy for money and titles, and worse, unworthy to enter the imperial family because she comes from the plebeian class. Franz Ferdinand fought hard for personal happiness with virtually his entire family, ministers, counselors, and courtiers. The Archduke said, "We have too often taken princesses from our own family as wives. We have, where husband and wife are in 20 different blood relations, with the result that half the children have been born stupid." It was only after an audience with the Emperor of Franz Ferdinand's stepmother Franz Joseph, with pain in his heart, that Franz Joseph consented to the marriage on the condition that their children would not inherit the throne. On July 1, 1900, the marriage took place. All of Europe followed the most romantic love story of the 20th century. However, the celebration took place in a modest atmosphere. Emperor Franz Joseph did not want to publicize the wedding of the heir to a girl not from the royal family. Perhaps this wedding was sincerely happy only stepmother of Franz Ferdinand and his two half-sisters. The couple was finally able to enjoy joint happiness, which was overshadowed only by the fact that the Habsburgs made it clear to Sophia where she belonged. Although she was the wife of the heir to the throne, she was not allowed to sit next to him at the table, was not allowed to accompany him on official occasions or ride in the same carriage. She was not allowed to use the prince's carriages, nor was she allowed to sit in the same theatre box with her husband. If there was no Archduke in the palace, the imperial guard was removed, deeming Sophia unworthy of such protection. When she gave a soiree, someone higher up would give the exact same party, thus depriving Sophia of her guests. Even on the occasion of the reception of the Shah of Persia, the chamberlains deliberately closed the door to the hall in front of Sophia's nose. All these conventions made Sophia's life very difficult. The couple tried not to be discouraged. They liked to spend time in their castle Konopashti in Bohemia or Artstetten. Sophia gave birth to 3 children, 2 boys and a girl. The children grew up in the love and care of their parents. In their home, conventions and etiquette were forgotten. Soon the Habsburgs themselves softened to gentle and kind Sophia. In addition, the Archduke's younger brother Ferdinand Karl, disregarding all norms, married the daughter of a university professor, as a result of which he was deprived of the surname Habsburg and struck from all imperial documents. His cousin Leopold Ferdinand first married a courtesan, the daughter of a postal clerk. His sister Louise of Tuscany divorced her husband to marry a musician and an Italian. Compared to them, Franz Ferdinand merely took an impoverished aristocrat as his wife, not a commoner. In 1909, Franz Joseph granted Sophia the title of Duchess von Hohenberg. Gradually, she was allowed to sit next to the Archduke at the table and in the same carriage. It is likely that Sophia accidentally accompanied the Archduke to Sarajevo. One might say she had only just received permission to do so. Be that as it may, this day became fatal for the happy couple. The Archduke's visit was guarded by only 120 police officers stationed every 100 meters, and this was an insufficient security measure. The news of the assassination of the 50-year-old heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne shocked the whole of Europe. Like dominoes, this action led to a military conflict that redrew the map of Europe. The couple were buried together, although at first it was planned to be apart. Despite the joint burial, Sophia's coat of arms was still placed slightly lower and made smaller to show the different social status of the spouses. To make matters worse, the children of the deceased were not allowed to attend the funeral. They said goodbye to their parents when everyone dispersed. Their 13-year-old daughter Sophia said that it's good that they passed away at the same time because daddy couldn't live without mommy and mommy couldn't live without daddy.